Welcome to school. Welcome. This is Lars Light from Tasting Panel Magazine. Welcoming you back to school, Spirit School. That is. It's a pleasure to be here with two of our sponsors, Lyre's non-alcoholic spirits. Kyle Billings is in the house, and Bacardi Center for Excellence at the FIU. My buddy Brian Connors is in the house as well. A couple of housekeeping issues. I want to let you know that this is being recorded, and you'll be able to watch the recording at tastingpanel.com, Tasting Panel Magazine's website, and also on Bacardi Teach website from the Bacardi Center for Excellence. And we are also right now live on Facebook Live on the Tasting Panel Magazine page. So you've got all that information. And today we're going to be talking about a great subject, great topic, which is clear spirits, our little salute to clear spirits. I think this is fun to point out a couple of fun facts here. All liquor starts out clear or light. It is aging or fermentation that gives it its color or its taste. During that aging or fermentation, it also absorbs substances and some different compounds, which are called congeners. Technically speaking, they're impurities. Darker alcohols have more organic compounds and impurities. They say that clear liquors tend to give you more likely to give you less of a headache, or not get as much of a headache. Whereas with dark spirits, they tell you that some of the congeners will actually be protective. So, for example, the butanol in whiskey helps protect the stomach lining. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Brown spirits, they also say, contain more antioxidants, but clear liquors definitely have fewer allergens. So this time of year, with all the pollen floating around, that's something to keep in mind as well. So we're gonna get started and kick this off. Brian Connors, would you just like to say a fast hello?
Fast hello. There you go. Lars, I'm always duly impressed with you, my friend. Your knowledge outside of the wine world is unbelievable. It's almost like you read it. It's just that good, But yeah, welcome everybody, and welcome to the Bacardi Center of Excellence at the FIU campus in sunny Miami, Florida. But we're excited to be partnering with this for this next few months, really, Lars. To bring some great new content as we're kind of coming on this tail end of our fun experience we called COVID-19. But more importantly, as a lot of our partners, a lot of our fellow industry veterans are getting back in the game, and we're getting people in restaurants back on their feet. And a couple of quick resources on that note that everyone is welcome to check out, as Lars mentioned, Bacardi Teach. It's an online platform we launched last May, so we're coming up a little over a year now. Phase 2 is coming out as well, but this is all free content that everyone's available. You can earn your certificate of excellence in beverage. We got some great storytellers, some great mixologists on there as well. And that's just at Bacardi Teach, BacardiTeach.com. You can get to it either which way. And there will be you'll like this, Lars, new content coming out for what we call badges, or for FIU credit as well. Those will not be free. There is a nominal charge for that, but we got some really great content coming out with that. We teamed up with Unfiltered Hospitality. We just wrapped yesterday, as you know, Lars, but we're going to be getting into kind of better operational, as we like to call, better bar methods. We're going to get a lot of our industry partners. We're going to help them. We're going to get them back in the, if you will, in the black. So they're making profitability as well. And the last little note, and I got to mention it because I'm so darn proud of them. I was already boasting to the panel earlier, is our wonderful Bartenders Guild actually won the Art of Tiki over at our South Beach Food and Wine Festival last weekend. I was a proud papa in the corner, Lars, as you know, but Christina and her team do an amazing job, and they won the People's Choice Award. And you'll see a lot more of that coming out in the coming weeks. So, oh, and look at that. You already have the Bartenders Guild students commenting on there. Cindy's on there. Christina's on there. Welcome, guys. Fantastic. Congratulations to you all. So on that note, I'll throw it back to you, Mr. Lars. Fantastic.
Thank you, Connors. I want to also give a shout out to Kyle. You want to give us a quick hello, because your team is going to be first up here. So hey, Kyle from Lyre's.
Hey, how are you guys? Yeah, no, we're happy to be a part of this. I'm looking forward to showcasing Lyre's and how it stacks up and can be part of a classic bar as the bar evolves. Non-alcoholic spirits partnered right next to kind of your classic spirits. So I'm happy to have Tommy kind of showcase the classic methods that we use.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to kick off this spirited discussion with Tommy Quimby. Tommy, where are you coming to us from there? Looks like
Yeah,
a really good setting.
yeah, it's a great setting. So I'm based in here in San Francisco, and I'm actually at Lost Resort in San Francisco. It's a newer bar that actually opened up during COVID. So Brad and his great team was able to put everything together and make a great space. Actually have an amazing outdoor space, but obviously, hopefully soon, we're going to be able to utilize this indoor space as things are starting to open up here in California. But yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off, Lars, unless you have anything else you want to. Yeah.
No, go right ahead.
So thank you so much for allowing myself and Lyre to be a part of this. I've been with Lyre for almost 2 years and really want to talk just a little bit about the category of non-alcoholic spirits and a little bit about how we approach the category of non-alcoholic spirits, and specifically in terms of our dry London spirit and how it can be utilized and how it can actually work, not just alone, but with alcohol itself. So just talking on the category of non-alcoholic spirits, many of you may have seen a lot more non-alcoholic spirits show up in the past few years, and Lyre's is obviously one of those. There's a couple different approaches that people have taken. There's some kind of esoteric flavors, but the approach that we wanted to take was we really wanted to pay homage to the spirits that are behind me right here, the spirits that are maybe at your home and that you use and drink and enjoy. And for us, it's really about allowing people to drink the way that they would like, the freedom to drink what they would like and how they would like to drink it. And what that means is allowing them to have the same culinary cocktail experience that people get with full alcoholic cocktails, but controlling that ABV, whether it's non-alcoholic, low ABV, or what have you. So that's really the reason why we've created an entire line of non-alcoholic spirits, is really just to mimic the spirits that we have behind me, excuse me. And Lyre's, the name itself, actually translates to that mimic. And a lyre bird is an Australian bird that mimics the songs of other birds. So it doesn't have its own song, it just copies other birds. And really that's what we've done, and that's how we apply the name to our products. So again, the London Dry Spirit is just mimicking a wonderful gin that people would drink in a gin and tonic, in a Clover Club, and so on and so forth. And how we do that is also really important to us. And so this is kind of where it becomes very interesting for us and in discussions, is we actually don't distill our products. And I know that there are non-alcoholic companies and products that distill a product and then they remove the alcohol and you're left with the flavor. What we found was that when you do that, we weren't left with the best quality product. And so the way that we produce and create all of these is actually to build these from the ground up, non-alcoholic, from start to finish. And how we do that is by utilizing some of the same flavors that would be in gin, juniper, maybe coriander and citrus. And we actually take the essences, the extracts, more on a molecular level, and we actually combine all of them, sometimes up to 30 to 40 different ingredients to each product, and build these to get the best flavor and the best aroma and the best utilization in cocktails, just as close as you can and just like you would in a non-alcoholic product. And that allows us to not only be able to say, hey, here's a great mimic that's non-alcoholic, but allows us to, what I like to call, plug and play into a cocktail. So for example, a great cocktail that I think a good classic cocktail that utilizes gin really well is a Clover Club. So you have London Dry Spirit in this case, which is our non-alcoholic. We're actually using a little bit of our aperitif dry, which is a dry vermouth, raspberry syrup, and then you have a little bit of lemon juice and egg white. Now, if you use 1.5 ounces of gin in your normal Clover Club, you can use 1.5 ounces of our dry London Spirit and get the same product. So what I've actually done here is just, I'm more comfortable behind the bar. I wanted to shake a little cocktail and make something really wonderful. Unfortunately, all of you can't try it, but I'll go ahead and make it and I'll get to give it a little sip here. But I've created that Clover Club with all of the same ingredients that you would with a normal alcoholic product. And here we have the Clover Club that I'm just going to shake and pour into the glass. Now, the other opportunity, and as I mentioned, you get to control the amount of alcohol in your cocktail. And before, it was either kind of an all or nothing. When you went out to bars and restaurants, you had a wonderful cocktail culinary experience, maybe a Clover Club on the menu. But then when you looked at what was on the non-alcoholic cocktail menu or what's on the low ABV cocktail menu, you couldn't always replicate that same experience. Well, now you can. And we could take a wonderful gin, say Bombay, that maybe Eddie's got, and we could actually split the difference with our non-alcoholic product, 3/4 and 3/4, and we could make a low ABV option as well. So what we're doing is going ahead and providing that opportunity and that freedom for people to drink any way that they'd like and not have to sacrifice the flavors. As opposed to it just being lemon juice and raspberry syrup, now we're actually introducing those nice flavors of the gin and the wonderful expression of the aperitif dry that we have, or the dry vermouth, and allowing you to actually have a properly made, wonderfully tasting Clover Club that's completely non-alcoholic. At this point, what we've done is basically used the 1.5 ounces of this. We've used a 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, a 1/2 ounce of our dry aperitif, 1/2 ounce of raspberry syrup, and about 1/2 ounce of egg white to put this cocktail together. And essentially that's the Lyre's brand, a little bit about the category itself.
You got a minute. You got a minute to do that.
And our dry London dry spirit. So
Great.
With that, I'll leave everybody with all that information. And thank you again for joining. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your time, Lars.
Thank you. Hey, Tommy and Kyle, is Lyre's nationally distributed?
It is. So we're distributed through Southern, and we're in new states. Currently, you can get it in a variety of places, whether that's online or in local regional stores. I'll also mention, to Tommy's point, just quickly, is that he made a beautiful Clover Club that looks awesome, and the recipe's the same that you would make with any other ingredients there. So I think that's a really important to point out, is that there's the ease of transition is as easy as it can be. But yeah, to your point, Lars, we are distributed nationally.
Okay, excellent. And Tommy's going to be back shortly toward the end. He's going to wrap it all up, showing off the white cane spirit that you guys have in the non-alcohol line. Looking forward to that. But in the meantime, thank you. Meantime, we have Dane Troop from Weed Cellars. Dane, what kind of clear spirit have you brought to the party?
The cardinal sin. I started talking before I muted. We brought a handcrafted vodka that I'm going to introduce to everybody. It's exciting. It's very cool. It's organic, gluten-free. So I'm going to jump into it if you don't mind.
Please.
I apologize for going through these hoops, but should get full screen there. I'd like to start off first by introducing our company and a portfolio overview. I know I only have 7 minutes, so I'm gonna speed date pretty quickly here and go through this. First, people ask, well, why Weed Cellars? And it's an irreverent name. It's thought-provoking. It's also the 8th most recognized word globally. And in addition to that, and I'm still in awe about this, we were able to trademark the word weed. So we own the word weed in 80 countries with Weed Cellars, and it baffles me why these huge cannabis companies never tried to trademark it, but we were able to do that, which is, I think, pretty cool. Weed Cellars, it's a true, original brand supplier that we are. It transcends the category in the alcohol space. No other company touches wine, including Prosecco, beer, and spirits, and we touch all of those. So it's a wonderful new concept that we're venturing into the alcohol space without getting into the cannabis space. And again, to use Tommy's word, it does pay homage to the individual in all of us. So it's fun. little bit about our strategic model. We're kind of a three-headed monster. Weed Cellars is the alcohol space. We're partnered with AMG, which is Artist Management Group, and we also have a Triller, and a social media app similar to TikTok, but it's U.S. owned. So we partnered with Artist Management Group, which is headed up by Rob Beckham. He's probably the best well-known manager for country music. And he brought in people like Gary Allen, Colt Ford, Brad Paisley as investors and influencers. And as Rob likes to say, they have skin in the game. Brett Saberhagen, a three-time All-Star, two-time Cy Young Award winner, MVP of the World Series, Dustin Penner. So those are the people that are spreading the word and touch points nationally for us. Now, getting into why we're here and the theme of clear spirits, we're introducing the Weed handcrafted vodka. And people ask, well, what does handcrafted mean? And I don't think there's a real true legal definition of handcrafted, but our version is small batch production. So that's what we're talking about with handcrafted vodka. It's an organic vodka. It's made from water that runs down from Mount Rosa at 15,000 feet in the Italian Alps. The semolina wheat, 100% semolina wheat that we use is from southern Italy. The region that is produced is Lagnasco, Italy. It's a continuous still production. Its ABV is 40% and it's 80 proof. Did win SIP Awards gold medal. Tasting notes, and this is really a cool thing, I think. It has notes of eucalyptus and candied orange, dried apple, and chamomile on the nose, and then on the palate, which is a creamy textured palate, it's it's lightweight, but it still is viscous on your palate. And then when you taste it, you have little hints of key lime, fennel, white pepper, which gives way to a little vanilla finish on the end. The distillation process, as the Weed handcrafted vodka, it's made, as Lars mentioned earlier, it's neutral spirits with water. The water actually goes through a reverse osmosis and it's converted to pure H2O. It has a top ambient fermentation with carbon filtration, and it really gives it a creamy texture finish. And as I mentioned previously, Weed handcrafted vodka is gluten-free and it's certified organic, USDA organic, and free of pesticides. And this is for you people like me, the data dorks. I kind of like this, and also sort of touches on the congeners and that was supposed to give you the hangovers. If you look at the specifications and look at the results, we are well under the specifications, which lends it to being a really clear, crisp, clean vodka. Perfect pairings. We like smoked sausage, gravlax, roast beef, pork chocks, summer salads, Mediterranean food, or again by itself in a cocktail, which is fabulous. Speaking of cocktails, we work with mixologists all around the country, and we encourage them to create fun, innovative cocktails, and then we publish them in the Weed Cocktail Recipe Journal. Here's a couple cocktails that we put together: the Weed Garden with handcrafted vodka, Cointreau, rosewater, etc. And then one of my favorites, being that my name is Dane, this is a Weed Great Danger. It's vodka, lime juice, jalapeno slices muddled with a little bit of agave syrup, a spring of cilantro muddled, served up, and it's a pretty spectacular cocktail right there. We also have weed lounges. We've got one in LA, one in Nashville. We're going to be looking to open weed lounges at Dallas, Miami, Chicago, some of the major hubs around the country. My bio is in here, so if you, I've got 25 years of experience in this business, and I'm constantly learning every day. So I really enjoy these type of events where I learn every day. And here's my contact information if anybody's interested. I am the VP of Sales for the Western U.S. I live in LA, and there's all my contact information. And that being said, I'm going to stop sharing. It's really a cool brand that we're working with and introducing it. It is available nationally. or will be available nationally. Weed Cellars products are available in most of the major chains nationally, independent retail, and now we're starting to really gear up on premise now that it's opening back up. So I appreciate it. Hopefully I stayed within the time, and thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Excellent. That was great, Dane. Sorry about that, but that Data Dork, that almost sounds like a dating app. Have to look into that too. But
I think I copyrighted that.
I like that. What really, really fast question for you though. Something that struck me, you're talking about the consistency and having the vodka having a creaminess. How does that happen? A creaminess is not something I would normally associate with the spirit.
Oh, I think it goes through, and that's obviously an individual take on my part. I think it's the viscosity in it. It gives it that mouthfeel of creaminess without being really heavy or viscous. I think it's the distillation, the 5 times distilled, the purity of the water, probably the creaminess of the wheat that we use from the semolina wheat. And again, those are just my opinions. I don't know if there's actually descriptor that can give it to it, but I think that's it. That's my version.
I can understand it. Awesome. Thank you very much. So now we're going to pass the shaker, as it were, to Eddie Johnson, who is a West Coast ambassador for the Bacardi Group, and he is here to talk to us about the House of Bombay. Welcome, Eddie.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. What's going on, y'all? Thanks for tuning in and giving me a little platform to speak about Bombay and gin in general. I think really the way this conversation typically goes is, everyone knows Bombay Sapphire. I mean, for me, it's been there at multiple different stages of my life, from, being like the go-to in my grandfather's martini to, my first ship behind the bar when someone asked me, what is gin? And I'm like, luckily I had Bombay Sapphire there as a cheat sheet to show me what those botanicals were. And it wasn't until much later, after working in some of the best bars around Los Angeles, San Francisco, Salt Lake City, that I really actually got in deep with the story of Bombay and really understood it. So I think it's best to kind of understand the whole story of gin, and then look at what makes Bombay special throughout that. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what I mean by that. Let's talk some gin right quick. So when I came into bartending in the craft cocktail scene, the options in the gin category had exploded. So there's a ton of stuff available on the market. And anyone that knows the gin landscape before, the late 90s knows that there were really only a few options, and we really didn't think all that deeply about what they were and what made them special. So I want to give you guys some of the tools to kind of understand that and then really look deeper at Bombay. So with any gin, gin is an alcoholic flavor or an alcoholic spirit with most of its flavor coming from juniper. And of course, with modern gins, we see that kind of change up a little bit, but really there's 3 areas that you can have any variation that change the gin hugely. One is the spirit base. Most of the time it's neutral grain spirit, but it can be anything, really anything that can be fermented and then distilled can be the spirit base. And we see a lot of different variation in the gin landscape there. Botanicals are the biggest part, right? Essentially, gin is a special spirit because it's using all of the flavors from all over the world, and really sometimes even all locally. So botanicals change gin hugely, and then the infusion style. 3 main categories that I want to kind of make sure everyone understands. So compounded gin, this is the cheapest and easiest to make. Basically, the way that you're marrying the botanicals to the spirit is just by macerating, no distillation required. And so because of that, it's much cheaper and easier to make. Distilled gin, this is just saying that the botanicals are married to the spirit through distillation, but at the end of that run, you can add sugar, you can add anything you want to kind of finish the gin and round it off. So because of that, that's the category of distilled gin. London dry gin. So this one is super confusing. I think a lot of people think it's like region specific. London dry gin can be made anywhere in the world. London dry gin is only saying that all botanicals must be present at the time of distillation and nothing can be added to it. This is kind of a mark back to the late 1700s when gin had kind of torn through England for the first time. So London dry gin really needed to be the stamp of quality, and kind of still is to this day. Three main ways that people distill gin. One is steep and boil gin, and this is the most common style of gin. It's cooking the botanicals on direct heat and having them married to the spirit that way. This produces like a heavier, rounder, kind of darker flavor. There's vapor distillation, where the botanicals don't reach direct heat and the vapors from the alcohol rise up and pass through the botanicals in kind of a different way than most gin. That is the Bombay Sapphire way, and I'll make sure that you guys understand that a little bit deeper going further. And then vacuum distillation. This is like one of the newest technologies out there, actually pioneered by Oxley Gin, which is also made at Laverstoke Mill, our distillery. This is basically taking the whole process into a vacuum, and because it's vacuum sealed, the boiling point is much lower. So you can essentially cold distill. So we definitely think of Bombay Sapphire as a leader in the modern gin renaissance. Bombay Sapphire was introduced in '87 at a time when gin had kind of fallen off of the map. A lot of people were just kind of choosing the new, the new sexy drink on the street, which was vodka. And so we really needed to kind of give gin a makeover, essentially. And so we did that through a number of different ways. And we talked about all those different things that make gin special. One is the botanicals. So this gentleman is Ivano Tenuti. He's our master of botanicals. He sources all of the botanicals from all over the world and really makes sure that we have a long-lasting relationship with all of our farmers, and essentially make sure that we're able to ensure the most sustainable practices in everything we do. So this is kind of a spread of where all of our botanicals are from, and we'll get into botanical build in just a second here. Everything is based around our flagship gin, which is Bombay Dry, and this is 8 classic botanicals. A lot of them you see in a lot of different gins, and some of them are super unique. But I really think of these as flavor camps, right? Juniper berry, lemon peel, coriander, that's going to be all of your citrus flavor. You've got angelica root and orris, which is the root of the iris flower. This is going to give you a ton of earthiness and florality. And cassia bark, almonds, and licorice that give you a lot more kind of heavy, dark baking spice notes. What we did with Sapphire is really pushed it forward at a time where people weren't using a lot of different exotic botanicals. And we really kind of opened the door to creativity and innovation in the gin space. We added to our botanical build cubeb berries and grains of paradise, and this hugely changed the profile. These are a lot like black peppercorn, so they have a lot of floral, bright spice to them. And because of that, we decided to up the proof to 47% on Bombay Sapphire. And this really changed the gin landscape in general, as well as kind of, giving the beautiful gin kind of the beautiful bottle to live in, right? And this really opened up the doors to a lot of new innovation in the gin space. So one huge thing, it wouldn't make any sense to go through all these great lengths to get the best botanicals if we didn't do the best thing with them, right? So this is Dr. Ann Brock. She's our master distiller. She's an organic chemist before she was ever a distiller. So she's really familiar with how these delicate flavor molecules really interact with each other. And she's the perfect person to have behind the wheel of our unique vapor infusion process. We are one of the only gins in the world to be 100% vapor infused. And that changes our profile hugely. A lot of times when you hear people talk about how they don't like gin, it's usually because of that really cooked, heavy, piney note. And our vapor infusion process really just brings out the most kind of true to nature expression of all of these botanicals. So instead of talking about it, let me show you really quick.
We gotta wrap it up though, Eddie. I'm sorry, you're at
yes, sir.
Time.
Cool. So essentially, we're cooking the spirit. The vapors rise and push through the botanicals. So the botanicals don't really reach that direct heat. They express in a much more crisp, clean way. So that's really what made Bombay Sapphire shine all these years, essentially. And it works really well in, any cocktail you put it in. New on the scene of the House of Bombay is Bombay Bramble. So if you see that out, check it out. It's a delicious new expression with blackberry and raspberry, really low sugar. So it's the new kid on the block. So thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eddie. And if everybody out there wants to hear more about gin, we actually have a whole webinar dedicated to gin on September 23rd, a new year for gin. And we're going to do a recap of that in January of 2022. So stay tuned for that. We've got another one on the way in between. But meanwhile, I would like to introduce an old friend, John Chappell, who is CEO and founder of a very cool startup program called, John, tell me if I'm pronouncing this right. Is it Paqui or Paqui? Your tequila. John Chappell, are you there? Mute. Got to take yourself off mute, John.
Okay.
Great.
Let's see where we are.
So the pronunciation of the brand name.
Paqui.
Paqui. Excellent.
Am I sharing at this point?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. Okay. As Lars said, I'm the entrepreneur who created Paqui. I'll give you a little bit about my motivation here. It wasn't absolutely from a love of tequila, but more of a business opportunity and a real curiosity and sort of puzzlement. Seeing these huge, billion-dollar brands, and from my point of view, I was puzzled about how they tasted, because at $50 a bottle, I was expecting more from them. And the things that I expect, I worked with Lars in the wine industry, and I am a wine drinker, a fairly serious wine drinker. And I expect things like aroma, I expect things like fruit, I expect complexity, and I expect a soft finish. And I wasn't finding that in the big brands at the luxury tequila space, the $50 brands. And there's a clue in this picture about what I was trying to do. I was trying to create a brand that's sippable, really a pleasure to sip. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we created the brand. We did some pretty intense drinker research to build this brand. We only learned maybe two big things, but they're important. Tequila is about as Mexican as anything can be, and it sort of defines Mexico in a way. And the other thing is that there's just this cool energy, fun sociability about tequila. Well, we built the brand around what we learned. And so we spent many months researching and then created this brand. The name Paqui, it's actually an Aztec word. It's a real word in that language, just, the language that chocolate comes from. Chili, coyote, avocado are all Aztec words. And Paqui in that language means to be happy. It makes sense. People drink tequila to have a lot of fun. The bottle itself has a lot of Aztec imagery, the Aztec calendar, the Aztec, pyramid. And this brand symbol is an Aztec warrior, but he's, you can tell there, he's a warrior with a headdress, but he's ready to party. And so we built in these Mexican archetypes, and it works. We really believe it's a beautiful package, and there's a reason for everything to be the way it is. And when Mexicans see this, they will say things like "muy mexicano," very Mexican. Now I'm going to get into how we make it briefly. As I said, I really care about how things taste. And if you're putting your own money into this, and I'm way deep with my own money into Paqui, you want to actually be personally proud of it. And I really am. First, we're using agave that is ripe at 7 to 10 years. And just like wine grapes, the bricks is key. And we pick at 25, 26 bricks. You can't make this profile with lower bricks. We use very clean conditions because tequila is very sensitive to bugs. And so it's all stainless steel, no wood fermentation. That would not help the profile. Now, a few things that we do differently from others. We use a fresh wine yeast at every fermentation. That's to avoid the variation in ambient yeast, because it's pretty much unlimited what's floating around in the air. This gives us absolute consistency of results. But the most important thing we do is another step in distillation. All these tequilas basically separate the heart by cutting off the head and tails, but we actually take apart the heart. And we're removing that substance that's come up a few times, congeners and fusel oils. And I'll tell you a little story. The master distiller once made me taste those as he was pulling them out. He didn't warn me. And wow, did I understand why I don't like a lot of tequilas. Because what he said is, when I got angry, he says, hey, we're pulling that out of Paqui. Those are in virtually every other tequila. And pulling out these impurities lets one taste all of the smell and taste all of the great things about agave. And just to let you know, it takes 10 kilos of agave to make a liter of Paqui, while the industry standard is 7 kilos. So this is a description of a great review we got in Wine Enthusiast a few years back. Lovely, complex flavors, lemon, grapefruit, vanilla, zingy pepper. And hey, the other three brands on this slide are over 90% of the volume in the US of luxury tequila. And we did better than those guys. And I think we're another step better than these scores indicate. But what else would I think as the main owner? But just to let you know, this will be on TV next week as part of a fundraising endeavor that we have. You can't devolve down, that ratings are everything. But what I think is clear is that Paqui is something different in tequila. And hey, look what Tasting Panel just did. 5 kisses, a 96. And I love how Tasting Panel paid attention to the aromas. Most people don't smell tequila because most of the brands don't smell that great. But Meredith, who wrote this, really got some nice aromas. And to me, that's a really key part of any luxury beverage. So, it looks like we really did, there's some outside proof there. Create something that's a pleasure to sip. It's not that we don't want to mix Paqui. It's beautiful in cocktails. But why not have a silver tequila that you can sip one after the other, with food or without food. And that's what I set out to do.
Well done.
I want to show the lineup, and I know this is about white spirits, but
You're at time too, John.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sounds
30 more seconds.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna skip that point and talk just a little bit about a mezcal that we have called Lejana y Sola. And, from Oaxaca, a mix of cultivated espadín and wild quiche. I was really in love with his flavor, and I didn't know how to describe it with words, but we just got our first review, and, a 95 rating. And it's nice to see that a professional back that up. But we are rolling that out now, and people are loving it. And here you see some of the really medieval production methods of mezcal. No electricity, stone, horse, copper, wood, manpower. That's it. Thank you so much, Lars.
Right.
Sorry to go a little bit over.
Thank you, John. We'll have to take your share screen down, and love seeing that clearly a nice tequila made by a wine guy. So touches all those great buttons that we all like. So thank you.
Exactly.
Looking forward to tasting it. And I'm glad Meredith liked it as well. So now we go to Manuel de Avila, who is a portfolio ambassador for Bacardi. So he could speak to all things Bacardi, but today he's going to really focus in on the Bacardi Superior white rum. Welcome, Manny.
Lars, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Like Lars mentioned, I am your Bacardi portfolio ambassador. And today I have the pleasure of reintroducing you guys to Bacardi Superior. And I say reintroduce because, let's be honest, Bacardi is famous worldwide. I rarely meet anybody that hasn't had Bacardi Superior, but I rarely meet someone that knows the rich history of Bacardi, right? So Bacardi has actually been credited with premiumizing the whole category of rum. So how did we do this? In order to kind of tell the story, we have to start off with our founder, Don Facundo Bacardi himself. He started in Spain, emigrated to Cuba, opened a fine wine and spirits importation shop, noticed that the only people that were buying his fine wine and spirits were the more affluent community of Cuba. He noticed that on the other hand, that the less fortunate people in Cuba could only afford to drink what is called aguardiente, which is known as the precursor to, I guess, rum as we know it today. A little more unrefined per se, right? So Don Facundo sought to make a rum that everyone can enjoy. He sought to bridge the gap between aguardiente and fine spirit. So he did this by implementing 4 specific pillars. He sought to implement a consistent yeast strain across the board. He implemented a dual distillation process. He aged all his rum. That's right, we got a clear aged rum, right? And we use charcoal filtration. So how do we actually implement these 4 pillars in our process? Well, we start off with the 3 ingredients to create all rum: water, yeast, sugarcane. You refine the sugarcane to create sugar, and then you get molasses, which is a byproduct of making sugar. You add water and yeast to that, you let that ferment, and then we go ahead and get that fermented juice and pass it through our dual distillation process. So part of that fermented juice goes through a single column still, which gives us what we call our version of aguardiente. Now, this isn't that fire water that I was talking about before. It is a much more molasses-rich, delicious rum base, a heavier rum base per se. And then the other half of that fermented juice gets passed through 5 continuous column stills, giving us what we call a redistilado, a much more clean, lighter rum base. From there, we go ahead and age it. We purposefully age it to start shaping the flavor of our rum. And then from there, our maestros blend it, and then we also do some charcoal filtration. Now, the charcoal filtration is to fine tune the flavor of our rum. So most of you guys know charcoal filtration takes away color, right? So yes, Bacardi Superior is aged 1 year, but it is clear. Charcoal filtration made it clear. But what most people don't realize is that you could actually fine tune flavor through charcoal. So you could pull out the highs or highlight the highs, or pull out the lows or highlight the lows in our delicious rum. Think of charcoal as a fine strainer, right? And you could use it to pull out maybe the dark resiny tones that is imparted by wood, right? Most people think that you age a spirit in wood, you get those delicious butterscotch, vanilla, caramel. Most people don't realize that you also get the resiny kind of tanniny notes. So we take that away, bring out the beautiful fruit notes, the beautiful molasses notes, and it gives us our delicious Bacardi Superior. You get hints of aromatic vanilla, almond, of course, delicious molasses. What people don't realize is that Bacardi Superior has 0 grams of added sugar. Never has and never will. It is made in a true Cuban style, means it is a dry rum, making it the perfect rum for mixing, which is why Ernest Hemingway made Bacardi so famous in, daiquiris, mojitos, el papa doble, right? Bacardi actually was presented at the World Fair in Philadelphia back in 1876. Now, the World Fair is important because this is a fair that the Corliss steam engine, the Remington typewriter, the Bell's first telephone was introduced, and Don Facundo and his family introduced Bacardi rum, and we won our first award there. Fast forward to over 150 years, our rum portfolio is now awarded with over 550 amazing awards, making us not only one of the most awarded rums in the world, but one of the most awarded spirits in the world. I hope I made it within my time section.
You did, Manny. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate that. Very, very cool. Great information there on, I guess we should be calling it Bacardi, correct?
Bacardi, yes.
Fantastic. All right. So now we're going to talk to Director of Mixology. That is a great title, and Spirits Education, a great educator, Alan Katz with Southern Glazers. Alan, welcome. I know you got a couple of different things to talk to us about, and I look forward to hearing.
I do. Thanks, Lars. It's vital for me to share that I made the title up. I've been with Southern, to my great fortune. In 2 weeks, it'll be 15 years. Wow. And this has been such a pleasure to listen to everyone and learn a lot of things and hear great perspectives. And I did want to share two things. I'm just going to share my screen mainly just to make it clear the products that I want to feature. One is Sipsmith's VJOP gin, very juniper, overproof. And the other, since we're talking clear spirits, here is the El Silencio Joven Mezcal. And I know we've talked a bit about agave spirits and we've talked about gin as well. And I just wanted to start very briefly, just the way I like to evaluate spirits. So I have a little bit of the mezcal, frankly, in just a simple glass. And we love wine, we love beer, we love spirits. And these two are really from our artisanal spirits portfolio, 2 of 7,000 brands we distribute across the country. And for all of them, for me, the first thing I do is take the nose, but not a long draw, but 3 or 4 very quick sniffs, and then put the glass away. And I highly recommend it. If you've never done it before, it might take 6 weeks to do, but commit yourself. I usually do this at like 7:30 in the morning. I have 2 little girls. They're up early. They like to smell with me. We only taste on Thursdays and Fridays, don't worry. But this is a great way to start evaluating spirits without the consciousness of what's the color, what's the density in your mouth. Just 3 quick sniffs and put it away. And on the mezcal, and you'll notice, if you can take mezcal and gin together in some regard, not in the same cocktail necessarily, but in the same evaluatory session, that there are actually some similarities. And between the Sipsmith and the Silencio, they're both made on very quaint pot still distillation methodology. They both have, to me, a very earthy root to them. And so for me, and particularly this time of year, but for me, anytime I have a new spirit in mind, I start out with my favorite basic cocktail, and that's any manner of sour. So if it's Bacardi, it's a daiquiri. If it's tequila or mezcal, it's going to be obviously a margarita. And for gin, it is a gimlet. And to skip to the gin for a moment, the idea and the concept of VJOP, again, very juniper, overproof. And I know we had great information from Eddie on Bombay and Bombay Sapphire. It's that range, and we saw the imagery of how, there's 8,000 gins on the market, and to select 1 or 2 for a cocktail focus is a very unique point of view, a very unique experience. One of the things that I think we always want to be conscious about is the botanicals, of course, but also the proof. And so the proof can range from low 80s all the way up to now 57+% ABV. VJOP, the overproof part, is 57.7 frickin' ABV. Don't be scared off by it. We're going to modify our cocktail recipe. The late Gaz Regan, God bless him, the best advice he ever gave me, and I'll keep the language clean because his certainly was not, was don't trust the blank recipe. It's not to say the recipe's wrong. It's got to taste right to you. So for a gimlet with the VJOP, which has, you know, heavy juniper berry, coriander seed, which is a bridge botanical to spice like cinnamon and cassia, and then equally so a bridge to citrus like lemon and orange peel. It's 57.7 ABV. We're only going to use 1.5 ounces in a gimlet, at least to my taste. 3/4 ounce of fresh lime juice. And then to give it a little wrinkle, which I'll go back and talk about in the context of Silencio in a moment, rather than straight up simple syrup, let's use a little gentle cassia bark syrup or a little gentle cinnamon bark syrup just to bring out one of the subtler botanicals in the gin. Again, for me today, just talking about the Sipsmith, that's apropos, but you could take a look at any of the range of gins that might be on a back bar or on a shelf space and say, what are the botanical ranges? What could I make a useful, a purposeful compound syrup from and have a wholly original gimlet set? If you want to give it a little trick and a little tickle at the end, you might actually add a few drops of something like Bitterman's Hellfire Shrub, just to give it that tickle. It's not to make it a spicy cocktail, but just to say, what is that flavor profile? What is that dryness from the juniper focus? Or how does it balance with the fruit qualities of the gin? And conversely, but also compatibly with mezcal, you know, I think of the dryness and the earthiness, of course, but the uniqueness of Silencio's Joven in particular is that it's an espadine base. We all know espadine at this point. At this point, you know, you can Google search espadine and get article upon article and reference point. It's the mainstream of mezcal. And what they do for their Joven brand is they mix a majority of espadine, which again, you're starting at 9-10 years of age, but they blend it with a couple of wild agave strains that are really unique. The first is Tobajiche, which starts at, I think, 12, 13 years old, and it's, sorry, 12, 13 years old, and then also Mexicano. And these two wild agaves, you've got the Tobajiche, which is sort of very delicate and plays off the middle center of the flavor profile of these agaves that are not Blue Weber in the tequila range, and the Mexicano, which is really delicate. And so you get these flavors of, to me, I like to call it sun-dried fruits, not just fresh fruit, but sun-dried fruits like nectarines and apricots, not just smoke that we think of for mezcal, but a sweeter smoke. You get this on the aroma as well. Also the tea elements like jasmine. None of these things are in the agave, of course, but these are the flavor points that, again, if you were saying, let's make a margarita variation and making a compound syrup, start with 1.5 ounces of the Silencio, the Joven, maybe 3/4 ounce of Cointreau or other triple sec, 3/4 ounce of fresh lime juice, and then a teaspoon or two of a jasmine infused syrup or a fennel infused syrup. And then you get this wholly new creation that's a standalone cocktail based on these simple classics of sour style methodology. But it's fun to really talk about clear spirits, you know, in the broad beyond and where the creative elements come in the artisanal or craft range of spirits around the world. So thanks a lot for allowing me the time to share.
Bravo. Thank you, Alan. A lot of great, great tips in there. The Cocktailian and all of us. I'm going to have to go back.
I'm happy we're recording this. You know what I mean? So there really is some great stuff.
I'm going back to some mezcal.
Excellent. That's the problem. You can sniff it, but then that putting it away part is the hard one. So we're going to go back to the bar with Tommy. Tommy's got a little bit more for us. I'm going to give a fast shout out to John Chappell and ask you to check your chat for a second. There's a message in there for you, a question for you, if you could address it. But Tommy, how's the bar still holding up there?
Yeah, just, had a couple of non-alcoholic. I got interested in listening to the mezcal. So, just trying a few here and there, but, thanks again. Good to be back. Just to kind of finish this off and introduce one more clear non-alcoholic spirit, which I know is always very interesting when people talk about that. So the last kind of few points that I wanted to come at was not only to introduce and talk about the Lyre's White Cane, so our mimic of a white rum, but also to talk about these products and the non-alcoholic spirits from the point of view of a consumer myself, but also a bartender. And much like many of you, if I'm asked to go out to dinner or drinks or hang out, usually in the past, especially before COVID, if I was trying to hold back or was trying to be good and maybe take a little bit break, my answer was no. And that was because when I go to a bar or restaurant, generally there wasn't a lot of options for me. And I mentioned this before when we were talking about the dry London spirit. But what the non-alcoholic spirit category has provided, and particularly Lyre's, is that option to go out and have a delicious drink that is of the quality of the alcoholic cocktails, just non-alcoholic or low ABV. And, that helps in so many ways, whether it's a health reason or you're driving that night or whatever it is, but providing the opportunity to kind of just still drink, still enjoy. It's not about the ABV in your glass always. It's just about enjoying that beverage with someone else. And that's really the point that I wanted to make. And it's great as a bartender. Previously, when I'm standing behind the bar for years, I would have people ask, can I have this cocktail non-alcoholic? And unfortunately, a lot of times that just ends up being some sort of maybe syrup and citrus and maybe splash of soda. It's really has been an afterthought. And now you're seeing more bars, more restaurants take the same effort and the same level of quality and introducing it into their non-alcoholic cocktail menu. And that's really great to see on so many levels. Even someone like me who does drink, I really do enjoy going around town here in San Francisco, here at Lock Resort, and then having some high quality options. So let's just talk about the White Cane for a second. As I mentioned, it's our mimic. So we're just paying homage to those white rums that are out there. And this is one of my favorites to work with, not only replicating those wonderful flavors, but also the aromas and, getting those hints of even grass notes in this, of a little bit of the banana, of vanilla, all that is in there. And the other thing that, I mentioned before, I talked about the London Dry Spirit, is that we are not distilling it. We're actually using all natural ingredients to build this up. And that has a lot of different advantages, not just the fact that it's non-alcoholic, but the fact that these are all vegan. They're all extremely low in sugar, and they're all extremely low in calories, anywhere between 50 to 90% to their alcoholic, less than their alcoholic equivalent. So you definitely get a lot of opportunity and options in the healthy category as far as the non-alcoholic spirit and the Lyre's White Cane and all of our other products. So what I have here, and again, I just like to shake a little cocktail up. I've already built it. I'm going to create an airmail. This is a white cane, so it's Lyre's White Cane, a little bit of honey, a little bit of lime juice, and then we're going to top it off with a little bit of our Lyre's non-alcoholic Prosecco, actually. So we do have these available on the market as well. And again, I heard earlier, some talking about, changing the recipes and things like that depending on the actual spirit. And these are, I always tell everybody, these are guidelines and you can definitely adjust these, but they are designed to be as close to the regular spirit as possible with alcohol. And these, as I said, are just plug and play. So I always start off using the kind of traditional recipe, in this case, 2 ounces. That's what I would use with the regular light rum. And I'm put 2 ounces in this with the White Cane. And I think this turns out really nice, but you can definitely adjust a little bit here or there. So in terms of this cocktail, the only difference when creating these, as I said, the recipe is the same. I just want to shake it a little less than I would normally with an alcoholic cocktail. I'm not trying to get quite that maybe half ounce of dilution. I've kind of taken the surveys. maybe bartenders guess around 8 seconds that they shake. Maybe it's different for everybody, but I always say, okay, if that's the case, do it for like 3 to 4 seconds. You do want to get it cold. You do want to oxidize it. You want to mix it up. You just don't want to add any extra dilution to it. So all I'm going to do is do my quick so about 3 seconds. Oh, this tin is nice and frozen. Just have to step to the side and grab a glass. And in terms of everything else you do with these cocktails, straining, you know, shaking, pretty much it's going to be all similar. Just going to fine strain this right into the glass. Now, as I mentioned before, I really love the sound when you crack one of these open. We're just going to add 1 ounce. This is our non-alcoholic Prosecco. I know it's not in the white spirit category. Some of you wine people might have had an opportunity to be introduced to this. And if not, hopefully soon. I'm going to do a nice 1 ounce float. And then I'm just going to top it off with a little mint. So I really like to show these cocktails because sort of the education with non-alcoholic spirits is showing people what you can do with them. And for us at Lyre's, it's just about doing the same thing you do with alcoholic spirits, creating those amazing culinary cocktails, enjoying those amazing culinary cocktails just in a non-alcoholic form, or again, in the low ABV form. So that's it. That's your Lyre's White Cane. That's your airmail. Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Very nice. Thank you. I like having those alternatives there with the non-alcoholic spirits. Lyre's really looking forward to getting into those. So thank you guys very much. This has definitely been a clarifying experience. Get it? Clear experience. I hope
The
everybody.
dad jokes again, Lars. The dad jokes.
Would you expect any less, Brian?
Absolutely not, sir.
Great. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. Thank all our panelists. Some great information, great education. Bacardi Center for Excellence should be very proud of the education that we've offered today. Thank you, FIU. We're going to be back on June 24th for the Pleasure Principle. Brian and I are going to be talking to some great people about liqueurs, RTDs, and aperitifs. That should be a lot of fun. And just a reminder that this recording is going to be on BacardiTeach.com as well as TastingPanelMag.com. So please tune in, get the recording. I'm going to be back listening to the recording, taking some notes because there were some great tips and information. I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. Brian, keep those students happy. You got a little break now or what?
No, we're still cranking along. We don't break down here, but to the whole panel, I mean, just amazing stuff. I agree. I'm going to go back and take some notes. Alan, I mean, everybody had great insights. I was like, this is some really good stuff. And I think Manny does get, you know, the award for his pronunciation is right on point. I expect nothing else, but right on point, Manny. That was awesome, dude.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's I mean, it's Latino in me.
Well, you know, the guy down in Miami that's an Irish guy from Connecticut. So
Right.
It's all good. Perfect, Mr. Lars. Thank you, man. This has been amazing.
With the right drink, I think there'll be a little Latino in all of us. So thank you guys all.
Hey.
Cheers all.
All right. Thanks all. Signing off from the Tasting Panel Magazine. Take care all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.